Hi everyone, it's Evelyn, and it's time for the Q&A, which also means it's just about the end of August, July. It just blows my mind how fast July went. And, speaking of Q&As, the next Q&A being the final, or the Wednesday after the final Saturday video, means the next one's actually in September. It's actually going to be on September 3rd. That just really blows my mind. This summer has just flown by. Anyway, that is totally beside the point. We're going to go over questions from all the videos that I put up in July. And the first one is from July's Flower Wagon updates. So in the Flower Wagon update, SHK1808 asks, "Hi Evelyn, in regards to your cash-only policy, do you think it affects your total sales?" And she also continues with, "If I lived in your area, I would definitely be one of your customers, but I never have cash and would have to go out of my way to get some. In today's world, shifting to cashless transactions, would you ever consider Venmo or some other payment app? Pros and cons." Well, first of all, there is no Venmo in Canada. It is a US-only service that requires a US phone number, bank account, and a debit or credit card for registration. So Canadians generally use email transfers. And in order to do email transfers, I would need to set up like sort of an iPad dock of some sort out there so that people could do that. And my Flower Wagon is so exposed to the weather, that's just not possible. It would get ruined pretty quickly, especially when it's raining. And of course, theft. I would assume that that would be one of the things that would definitely get stolen. So I don't want to have any kind of iPad out there for people to do their email transfers on for the theft purposes. And also it would get ruined in the weather. Almost the first day of rain, it would be toast. I have had people phone me, because I do have my phone number out there, asking me if they can do an email transfer because they don't have any cash on hand. And I just say no. We are so close to the downtown area. I could literally walk to the first cash machine. And everybody who lives here knows how close they are to the cash machine. And I have had people actually say, "All right, I'll be back in a couple of minutes." And they go and they get cash and they come back. Some people just leave a note in the box and say, "Sorry, I didn't have any cash on hand. I'll pay it the next time I come by." And they do that too. So I don't really find it an issue doing cash only, mainly because we are so close to the downtown core. If I was further away, that would probably be problematic. But honestly, most people who are driving past me are either on their way into town or on their way out of town, because when you drive past my house, within a few blocks, you are into the downtown core. So it makes it really, really easy to get cash. So that's my answer to that one. So then, that's the only question that I had for the July Flower Wagon update. So we're going to move on to the July Flower Farm update. Actually, that was not the only question. It was the only question that I wanted to actually answer in the Q&A, because the other questions were fairly easy to answer straightforwardly on the actual video itself. So if you want to see what other questions and answers we put out, you'd have to go to that video. So on to the Flower Farm update. Deborah Hockenberry 5440 asks, "Have you ever used the hosta flowers in bouquets? They smell beautiful and have a semi-decent buzz life. Those yellow flowers definitely look like Rebecca." Now that's a different flower that she's referring to. I'll put a picture up of it. "I have a lot of different varieties that I grow and use for my bouquets. Have you ever tried growing the deep red amaranth? It is edible and grows like a weed. Self-seeding for next year. I will send pictures so that you can see. I use the amaranth as a filler with the Dahlias and Dora and black button coneflower." I can't talk. Dahlias, Dora, and black button cornflowers. These are the colors that you love, and so do my customers. It always sells quickly. So to the hosta flowers, I have quite a few hostas, and they flower. And if it was a rainy day, cool day, very cloudy day, I could use them. But again, my Flower Wagon is so exposed to the weather, not just the rain, but the sun. So when it's really, really hot out, those hosta flowers aren't going to last, because the plants themselves are growing in fairly deep shade. So that's just too much of a shock to their system to then go into full sun. So while I will use hosta flowers in custom bouquets, I will not use them for the Flower Wagon. The deep red amaranth is a color that I love, but it's not a flower I can add to my garden, because once we get into mid-July, I now have plenty of flowers to use for my bouquets that I like using. My issue is that I don't have enough for earlier on in the season. So any new cut flowers that I'm going to add to my flower beds for next year are going to be ones to fill in the areas where I have some weak points in the spring. So as much as I love the look of the amaranth deep red color, it's not smart for me to add that into my flower beds because I don't need more flowers right now. I need more flowers earlier on in the year, and I have very limited space. So any new flowers I'm trialing will be ones that bloom for earlier on. So I hope that answers your question. So then we have Common Law 54. She asks, Miss Evelyn, the mystery flower may be a black-eyed Susan Rebecca. We're still referring to the same picture. The Gardener's Workshop has lots of pictures. Go to Shop and All Seeds. In the black-eyed Susan category, there are many kinds I didn't know existed. I've shied away from Susans as I know they can be invasive. Now, I did go and look at it, and then I read up a bit on Rudbeckia, and one of the things I learned is that they very easily cross-pollinate. So the ones that are growing, that showed up in two flower pots actually that I just had sitting aside with the soil in it, the ones that came up, they are probably nothing specific. They're probably cross-pollinated seeds that came from well, obviously they came from somewhere else. So I don't think I'm actually going to be able to match what they are because they would be a cross-pollinated version. So then she says, how do you keep the dahlias at a manageable height and stem thickness? And that goes straight down to how you cut them. So in the first 2 years that I did flower farming, I only sold dahlias, and I did not sell them in bouquets. I only sold them as short stems in pop cans. And because I was selling them short stems in pop cans with stems no longer than this, whatever that is. Do I have a ruler handy? Yes, I do. So I would say my stems were no longer than 8 inches. And those 2 years, my dahlia plants grew 5-6 feet tall, which I kind of liked because they gave us some privacy behind them if we were sitting out there. And the stems, the trunks, were trunks. I couldn't use pruners either to cut them down at the end of the year. I had to use great big loppers to cut them back. And so that's if you're not cutting them down and deep, you will get the big thick trunks on them and they will grow to their natural height. However, for cut flowers, I cut my flowers always so that they're elbow to hand. So I'll reach down the stem so that my elbow's at the top where the flower is, and then I'll cut below my hand. That's my measurement. So because my flowers start so early when the plants are quite young and short, because I start them indoors February 1st. So when they go outside, they're already young plants above the soil surface. And then as soon as we start to get hot, they start to want to put on blooms. So they're starting to bloom when they're quite short. So the first blooms that I cut are usually just for the pop cans because there isn't long enough stems, but then they start to take off. And as they grow longer and I do that length and I cut down into them, I'm cutting down to where the plant is only about another 18 inches tall. So they never ever get really, really tall because I'm constantly cutting those bloom stalks down because I go out every day and I cut every single flower that's blooming to the point of wanting to use in bouquets or pop cans. So that's how I keep them down in height, and that's why they never get really big thick trunks for stems, because they never get a chance to. Yeah, so there you go. She says too that she uses loppers to cut them. Yeah, and that's what I had to do those first few years too. Mind you, I will say they were so beautiful. I mean, the front garden beds of the dahlias, I have about 170 growing, with masses of blooms all over these 6-foot plants, just looked stunning. I miss that look. I liked that look. And now, because they're staying so short, and I'm cutting every bloom as soon as it's open, it's just kind of sad that I don't get to see all the flowers anymore. But I'm not growing them for me. I am growing them for bouquets, so that's just one of those things that you have to deal with. So now, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider giving it a like. Give me that old thumbs up, really appreciate it. And we will go on to the next video, which is July bouquets. So Canadian Gardener asks, what do you normally grow around peonies? Now, the reason she's asking that is because this year was the first year my peony plants are starting to get to that size where it's difficult to grow anything around them, which means next year it will be extremely difficult. There's like in the front of the bed, I might be able to grow a little bit of stuff. I might be able to grow a single row along the sides and maybe lettuce in the shadow of the back of the beds. But not much else. So I had used the peony beds as my areas for experimenting because I knew eventually I wouldn't have a place in them to have specific cut flowers growing. I can't plan for having a particular cut flower growing constantly in a bed that is going to slowly lose its space. So I was using those beds for a lot of experiments. And so what I had normally grown in those beds is if you look at this plan, you can see I have 2, 3, 4, 5 beds that are 4 foot by 8 foot in size. This bed has my herbaceous peonies in it because they're smaller than the Ito peonies, and these 4 have Ito peonies. Now this first bed here is where I have on the outside in a single line and around the back, so basically a tall U shape. I have just a single line of garlic always growing there, which I will keep because the garlic grows fantastic there. At the very front of the bed, I call this the front because this is our back fence along here. I always have zucchini growing there. And around the Ito peonies, I always had, knowing I would eventually have to move them, my black button bachelor buttons. And this year they did really poorly because they were just shaded out too much from the peonies. And then, of course, the garlic. They had virtually almost no room. So I should have actually not had them there this year. Next year, they're going to go into the front garden where I plant my snapdragons because I'll reserve some space in that bed, in the snapdragon bed, for my black button bachelor buttons. In this second bed and in the third bed, up until this year, I had my ranunculus in one and my anemones in the other. And last year, they were already not receiving quite enough sun. They grew really long stems because they had quite a bit of shade. But I knew they wouldn't do good this year, so I took them out of the, well, didn't take them out. I didn't plant them in those 2 beds this year. What I did is I decided to eliminate these 2 3 foot by 5 foot beds and plant, which had strawberries in them. So I eliminated the strawberries and I planted the anemones in the 1 3 foot by 5 foot bed and the ranunculus in the other. So then what I planted in these 2 beds this year was my lettuce plants. And then I did a row of garlic at the back. And I also, in the front of this bed, I have my espresso gladiolas, which are started blooming 4 days ago. And I planted 7 a week, and it's working out because 7 a week was, in theory, gave me 1 a day, and that's basically what I'm getting. And in the front of this bed, I grew my evergreen glads, and I bought those at our local Campbell River Garden Center. So I didn't start them as early as the espresso glads. So they haven't started blooming yet, but they're pretty close. This 4th bed has always had my tomato plants in it because that's the bed that the tomatoes grow best in. And they are growing in there quite well this year as well. I may still be able to get some tomato plants in there, but not as many. And then this 5th bed that has my 6 herbaceous peonies in it, in this gap in here is where I have my potatoes. And I'll probably still be able to get potatoes in there, just not as many. So that's how that works. And when I can't grow the potatoes or the tomatoes in there, I have to think about that. Now she says your deck. Could some of those plants grow in pots for color or culinary use by the sliding door upstairs? They could, and by the sliding door, our sliders that go into our dining room, is about the best place to put things that grow on our deck. I already have several pots of rosemary up there that we use. And I do have chives and marjoram and any other herbs up there that we use. Can't think of it right now because that's my husband's department. I don't cook, he does. And so, and the reason it's the best place is because the sun rises at the back of our house, and the whole deck gets sun from the time that the sun comes up. But then as it passes over our house, the shadow line from the roof starts to grow. So right up against the house is where there's the most shade. It starts at noon. So it's already had a good, when does the sun come up? Comes up around right now around 5 or 6 a.m. So it's already had quite a few hours of sun. The way we have a large deck, it's like a two-car garage. Well, it is a two-car garage, the roof of it. And because it extends so far away from the house, the back of the deck actually gets sun from practically from sunrise until, well, after dinner. What time would it go in shadow at this time of year? Probably around 7 o'clock in the evening. I haven't really checked, but that's a lot of sun, and I can't find anything that likes that much sun on our deck down at that end, because it's really, really hot in the summer. We have gray tiles which radiate heat. We have glass deck panels so that we can see through them to the ocean when we're sitting down. The glass, of course, collects heat, so it's a very, very, very hot spot. But yeah, right up against where the sliders are at the house, that's a good spot. So if I have to move the tomatoes, I may try some in pots up there. We shall see. That might be a good, even if I can still get some tomatoes in that one peony bed, I'll probably next year trial some up on the deck to see how they like it there, and maybe in a few other spots. I am already this year trialing them up against our back fence, but they don't seem to be doing as well there. That's a long-winded answer to that question. And if you're enjoying my long-winded answers to the questions, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and don't forget to give me that like if you haven't done that yet either. So the next video we're going to talk about is the final video of July, and that is hydrangea bouquets. So Heike Dubner 9073 says, amazed that you have labyrinth blooms already, and that is because I used 2 labyrinth dinner plate dahlias in one of the hydrangea bouquets. She says, mine are just starting to push out flower shoots. Cafe au lait and tartan are at least making buds now. I always enjoy your use of unconventional fillers and greens. Thank you. I use dill, cilantro, and fennel blossoms, but have not yet tried radish pods. So I have not tried dill. We don't grow dill. My husband doesn't like dill. I don't think I like dill either. Cilantro I tried one year, but honestly, I'm one of those people who can't, I don't know if I don't like the taste of it. I can't stand the smell of it. I grew it, and I didn't even want to touch it because the scent of the cilantro that was left on my fingers I did not like. So I'm one of those people. And fennel blossoms, I haven't tried. I know I love bronze fennel the way that looks, but I haven't tried growing that yet. And I don't think I will, and it goes back to I'm really now becoming far more limited into the space that I have for growing cut flowers. So I have to be very, very careful about what I decide to grow. But I thought, the video came out on Saturday, this past Saturday, so I thought Sunday morning, and so did the question, I thought Sunday morning I would go out and just do a quick little video of what's happening in my dahlia beds right now so that you guys can see that. And I'll just talk over it, not about the actual dahlias, but just about things in general. Well, I might talk a bit about the flowers. Like here, you can see that I've got yellow ball dahlias growing, quite a few of them. I pick about 2, 3 every day. These are my Papageno. I've cut 1. These are my Wanda Scapella. I haven't cut any of those yet, but they're almost ready. Wanda Scapella is the big yellow dinner plate dahlia. I've cut several of those already. Keith H over here, I've cut quite a few of those already, but they don't hold up well to the heat. I'm really disappointed in their heat holding capabilities. And then in this center bed is where the Spartacus is in that back line, and I have been cutting quite a few Spartacus dinner plate dahlias. I practically have 2 to use a day, which is just really amazing. In front of them, in the 2 rows ahead, I have that one AC bend that you see, first one to cut. I have quite a few labyrinth in this front row that I've been cutting already, but same thing, about 2 a day. AC Loomis, I wish I had more of those. That's the most heat tolerant out of all the dinner plate dahlias, but I haven't been able to cut on them regularly every day. In the second center bed, my Cornell Bronze has been quite prolific. I have quite a few of the Yarra Falls that are blooming, but they're short-stemmed. More labyrinth dinner plate dahlias here. And then I have just a couple of, I forget what that one's called, the purple one. And if I think of it, I'll throw it in there. These are a new one to me. They're called Vasiomegos, and they're a pink one. I've only cut 1 of those so far. Here's a beautiful tartan that I've cut that day. And lots of Arabian Nights. They don't hold up well to the heat either. And then we have down at this far end, we have Edinburgh. And it's prolific, but I haven't been able to cut consistently every day. It's more like every second or third day. And usually that's a more prolific one than that for me. But we have been in a lot more heat than we're used to. Here are some more dinner plates. So here's my Wizard of Oz. It's producing well. I've been able to cut at least 2 a day, if not more. Here is Sylvia. Still not liking Sylvia, so I probably will definitely eliminate that next year. My Petra's Wedding's doing really well. I'm definitely cutting several of those per day. And I think that is it for the dahlias that I have growing in my garden and that were blooming. So I filmed that on Sunday morning before I cut, because once I cut them, of course, then you won't see any of them. So that gives you an idea of what every day kind of looks like, because I cut every available flower head that is usable each morning, and I get a good bucket or bucket and a half or 2 buckets full of dahlias these days. So now I'm just like swimming in flowers, so I don't really need anything else other than the dahlias, the sunflowers. The gladiolas are online now. My purple marjoram that I love so much. Poppy pods are kind of finishing. They're starting to go to seed. What else do I use? Well, the laurel leaves. You know, I've got plenty to use between the sunflowers and the dahlias and the glads. I've got plenty to use because there's of course all sorts of other fillers that I can use. So yeah, so that's what's happening in my garden these days. For now my. I'm having a problem with my picture. Didn't want to switch. And then the final question I'm going to go over, I'm just going to go over it quickly. And it's from Canadian Gardeners, Zone 6A. And she says, what advice would you give to someone starting out in cut flower farming? Don't do it. And I said, I answered that quickly, but I'm going to say that here too. I'm actually going to do a video of that. Not this month, not coming up in August, but sometime this fall, I'm going to do a video on advice that I would give to someone who's starting a cut flower farm. And yeah, so look forward to that. I haven't got it slotted in exactly what date I'm going to do it. I'm one of those people. I've got videos kind of slotted in for the rest of the year. Part of it is I may start going to doing 2 videos a week every week. I was going to say not this week, but clearly this week, because this Q&A is coming out on Wednesday. Because I have a new computer now, so things are going a lot faster for me as far as the editing goes. Way, way faster. So because the editing isn't taking me nearly as long as it used to, I may be able to easily fit in the same time period as far as putting videos together by doing 2 a week. But I have to think about that. So if I'm doing 2 a week, that means what advice would I give to new people who want to start cut flower farms would come in earlier on in the year than if I was sticking to 1 a week. So stay tuned for that. And now what I'm going to do, because I always do this, is I'm going to show you guys the flowers, my favorite flower pictures that I've taken for the month of July. But before that, I've got a little montage of Leela and Esri down at the beach. It's 1 minute long only. It's 2 videos because it's in 2 different locations. But the second video, I've cut a chunk of it out. So it's the first short little video, and then the second video of the beginning and the end. But they're put together for a total of 1 minute. So if you don't want to see the video of Leela and Esri, just skip ahead 1 minute. And then there'll be a montage of my favorite photos that I've taken out of the cut flower beds for the month of July. So the video that I think I'm going to put up for you guys to click on if you haven't watched it already is my sunflower bouquet recipes that I did last year, because of course sunflowers are in full bloom and everybody's got them right now, but I haven't done a this year video on sunflower bouquets yet. So if you want to see how I put my sunflower bouquets together last year, check out this video up here, and I'll see you guys on Saturday. Bye.